think today is the last day of the bouldering season. Bit of fresh snow in the hills this morning, but it looks kind of warm, so I think this is it. Yeah. I've really enjoyed coming here to try this all winter. So yeah, this project behind me here, friend Rob showed me it, I think in 2019, and I think in 2019 I had 2 sessions on it, and I just basically completely dismissed it as being too hard, and it's still a project. I haven't done it. Not that I expected to. For years now I've really enjoyed doing long-term projects. The crucial ingredient of them actually is look for something that's just out of reach. I don't think I can ever climb this. So you might think, well, why am I trying it then? The climb itself is really just the platform for what I'm actually trying to do here. The purpose of trying this is not really to climb it. It's to confront my absolute limits. Now I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but that is what I'm trying to do. So although I've been here countless times over the winter, trying, just the individual moves, and I have failed ultimately on the project. I don't count it as a failure. The crux of what I want to say in this episode is about how you define success and failure in climbing, and you can define it in multiple ways. Often the way that people do define it is in getting to the top of their climb, which is fine, that is definitely a measure of success. But as you approach your limits in climbing, reaching a new grade or succeeding on this next hard project that you pick precisely because it feels impossible, that gets harder and harder to achieve on a regular basis. I suppose I should start warming up. This climb is actually the only one that I've ever used fingerboard to warm up. I'm not normally a fan of fingerboards at the crag. It's not that I don't like them, it's just that I don't usually feel that they're necessary. On this particular boulder, there's not really any good warm-ups, and there's not also an easy part of the project to warm up on. A cold northerly like it is today, my skin's a bit glassy. That's why I need to go and also climb on the easy problems around the corner, just to get my skin warmed up. Let's go and do that now. If I wanted to, I could fill my whole life with going around climbing Font 8As, Font 7Cs, just in a, clean them up and just do them straight away. Or I could pick Font 8A plus, Font 8Bs, where I clean them up and they take me a number of sessions, but I can quite rapidly make progress on them. I've actively chosen not to do any of those things, to spend a lot of my time trying projects that are like Font 8B plus, which are, if they're proper Font 8B plus, are going to take me a long time to do, months to years. If I get them done in a season, great. If they're just a fraction harder at the hard end of even that grade, it's going to go from months to being possibly never. But the project around the corner, I've been trying it all season and I haven't done it yet. But I am not in the slightest bit disappointed. In fact, I'm actually really glad that I've spent so many days this winter coming to this place and trying it, even though I've only managed to link a few moves together. So my stretch goal for this project for the season was to try and link 3 moves together. So just at the start of January, I did actually achieve that goal of climbing the first 3 moves in a row. I was feeling really strong at that time, and it's funny how after that, I did a weird experiment with my training, well actually with my diet, and I lost a lot of strength and I could actually no longer do the first move. And in the process of that, it forced me to go right back to basics with that first move, which is the crux, and rework it. And now I've started doing it with an E-bar, which requires a lot less burl, which is just as well because I've lost arm strength. So now I can actually do that first move again, although it's still feeling desperate. I actually injured my elbow as well, and now this arm feels really weak. But anyway, 2 sessions ago, I did also link the 2nd, 3rd and 4th moves. So essentially my links are doing the whole thing in 2 halves. So that is actually excellent progress. I'm delighted with that. And on certain sessions this winter, when I felt at my best and conditions have been at my best, I have felt that it's not a futile exercise. I have felt wee twinges of feeling, this is possible. I could maybe do this. And I really love being on the edge of that. Like, I'll never do it for 5 sessions, and then 1 session you're like, ooh, maybe. And I get really excited and I drive home just full of psych, like, is there a way that I can capitalise on that improvement and keep moving forward? Of course, the way projects work is you often will take 1 step forward and then 1 step back. Ideally, it works out that you take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but sometimes it works out the other way around and you actually make negative progress. But I'm certainly not disappointed with my failure to climb the boulder to actually get to the top of it, because that wasn't really how I would ever define success and failure on a project. Think of the end in mind, right? So 20 years time, if I look back on this project, What would I be happy with? What would I be disappointed with? Would I be disappointed with failing on it? No, like my stretch goals as a climber when I was in my early 20s were to climb E9 and French 8C sport route. They were like the cutting edge grades. Like I remember I used to have a poster of Ben Moon on my bedroom wall on Agincourt and the 8C in France, the first 8C in the world. And 8C was the cutting edge. There were no 8Cs in Scotland and there were no E9s. I did the first 8C in Scotland, I did the first E9 in Scotland. I did both those stretch goals, and ever since then everything else has been a bonus. So I've been trying to push and push and push the limit, and the limit has to be somewhere, right? Let's go do another warm up. So it would be ridiculous really to be disappointed with failure to actually keep climbing harder and harder and harder. The only thing that would ever disappoint me was to feel that I did not give this a proper try. And so the fact that I've come here day after day all winter long and never lost a sack, even when I've gone backwards with strength, I've been injured, I've broken holds, all sorts of things have happened that have set me back, or I've just had sessions where I just don't feel as good, I just can't do the moves anymore. But although I felt frustrated about that, I never felt, oh, I shouldn't be trying it. I've always done the journey home thinking, how can I turn this around? How can I make an improvement? And when I think back to where I was in November, I understand those moves a lot better. I can see how I could put different ingredients in place in my preparation for the next bouldering season and actually make it happen. I just really wanted to say something about that, because from listening to other climbers' conversations and a lot of what's discussed online with respect to climbing, I do get the sense that a lot of people are struggling a little bit. Maybe struggling is the wrong word, but they feel that that's one of the main challenges of climbing, is dealing with the psychological aspect of just trying hard things, and dealing with failure on them. You know, temporary failure. It's always temporary failure. The great thing about the rock is it's still here tomorrow, or it still will be here next year. And although I think about that psychological approach to dealing with difficult projecting and difficult climbs with respect to coaching and making videos like this, I don't think about it much from my own climbing. It's really not a weakness of mine. I spend almost all of my time trying to figure out how I can improve my strength to weight ratio. That's the main difficulty for me. But psychologically, trying hard stuff and getting beaten down or intimidated or worried about failure, it just doesn't bother me. Right, let's get some rock shoes on. So a moment ago I was saying that I don't really get intimidated by failure on climbs. So why is that? So when I was a kid I was very quiet and introverted, didn't do well in sports at school, didn't have a lot of physical or psychological confidence. I'm actually writing a book about my own climbing at the moment and talk in detail about how I got into it. But the thing that struck me the first time I went rock climbing was that although I couldn't get off the ground, and so I had a complete failure from my first attempt to climb, as everyone does, nothing happened, nobody laughed, nobody was there to record it as being a success or a failure. It was still just me standing in front of a piece of rock that didn't say anything. It was just there, waiting for me to try again. I found that very accessible. It kind of drew me in. You didn't need to be confident to try again. And if you had 100 failures or 1,000 failures, it didn't matter to anybody. I didn't expect to succeed because I didn't expect to be good at sports I never had been in the past. And really, at a basic level, I think I've carried that psychological approach with me ever since. For me, that's a very good place psychologically to be, because you're always looking for the weaknesses and enjoying filling them in. Sometimes I'm just fucking tempted to go back to that. You know, a big part of sports psychology has been focused very much on positive thinking and focusing on positives, and that does have a role. I think that can be good, and I do it too at times, especially when I'm actually on climbs, actually trying them. But in the times in between that, I focus a lot on the negatives and focus a lot on my weaknesses and what I can't do, because I find that that's the fertile ground, if you like, for improvement. And if you're interested in hard climbing, to me, those are the bits that are fun. So it would kind of feel odd to be sad or disappointed or frustrated about the parts of climbing that are actually providing the enjoyment. Good link. Oh, I'm going to call it a night. That's us. Too dark. I basically equalled my high point. Now, I don't think I'll ever climb this project still, but if I ever did, then I will just look for a harder one and I will just start this process again, and it will be even harder the next time. And so if that's the case, I might as well enjoy it.